Does the original Fable hold up 20 years later after its release? The short answer is yes, because you can do this. The long answer is a bit more nuanced, so let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Bald Guy Jace, and today we'll be answering the age-old question, Fable, was it any good? Let me start off by confessing that I did not have an Xbox or a computer that was capable of running this game, so my only memory of this game during its launch period is when a friend invited me over to his house to play Fable. He never once passed the controller to me, so wherever that friend is now, I hope he's miserable. But it's up to ourselves to rewrite our histories, and I did my first full playthrough of Fable last year, then another one for recording videos, and then another one for additional scenes. I really went through the ringer for this video, so if you do not click on that subscribe button right now, I hope you'll be miserable. And we're also pretty close to 1 million. Fable 1 has 3 distinct editions. The first one came out on the 14th of September 2004. It was a commercial success and it had components that were considered quite revolutionary at the time. But critics and fans alike were disappointed that the features in the game were overpromised but underdelivered. A year later, the public would see the release of Fable: The Lost Chapters. This edition contained everything in Fable 1 alongside some story DLC and additional content, like the Bordello side quest.
Perhaps you would consider turning this house into a refuge for fallen women?
Of course, it's only right.
Are you sure, sir? Once they've tasted freedom, my girls will never want to go back to being prostitutes.
Yeah. In 2014, 10 years after the initial release, a high-definition remake called Fable Anniversary was released. It boasted better graphics, an updated control scheme, and additional quality-of-life features. This would also have been the perfect time to fix some of the glitches plaguing the old version. The Anniversary edition is the one I've played, and I will review the game through that lens, while also keeping in mind on which version the game is based. I just didn't feel like doing this without controller support. With that out of the way, let's talk about the premise. Fable was one of the first open-ended games that used morality as a gameplay concept. I'll talk about the alignment system later in the video. The game also boasted an okay enough story, which I've already covered in a separate video. For now, the most important thing to know is that you start off as an unknown child living in a medieval town called Oakville. When it's attacked by bandits, your father dies and your mom and sister are presumed dead. You are then recruited by the Heroes Guild. This place doubles as a tutorial for the player, where you're introduced to the game's mechanics, while also becoming an adolescent. After some years of training there, you are free to roam the world and embark on quests, making moral choices as you see fit. That's gonna do it for the premise, let's talk about the rest. When we open the game, we're shown a storybook with landscape pictures of areas in the game. I like this, as it nods to the fairy tale-like quality of the game, making it really feel like a Fable. It also gets bonus points for being Shrek adjacent. From the main menu, we can start a new game, load an existing one, or switch between heroes. This allows us to use multiple profiles with different save slots. In my opinion, functionality like that is a must, especially when you have a choice-heavy RPG with a tendency to lock you out of content when certain phases are reached in the game. We can also change our settings here. For the people who are eligible for a veterans discount, it's possible to revert back to the OG control scheme from 2004, but you shouldn't. Hidden within the menus is a stamp book containing all of the achievements we've earned so far. Most of them are just shitposts, which is a craft I really respect. Before we set off on our adventure, we can select between the hero and chicken difficulty. The chicken difficulty is the same gameplay settings and rules as the original games, while the hero difficulty offers a more challenging experience. Rather than making any meaningful gameplay changes, they only adjust the number slider. Heroic difficulty also adds monetary taxation on items in the world, and that's theft. Lastly, the main menu offers some additional options for people who understand them, but I'm not one of them, so we're moving on. Fable takes place in Albion, a location based on medieval England. How do I know this? The world building is really well done. It's fun, distinct, and makes sense most of the time. Traveling through Albion feels like a trip to a museum in some ways, going back in time to see how a semi-open world RPG was handled back in the days when Tony Hawk's Underground 2 was the game to have. This is because Shrek is an unlockable character there. There are some forces at play with the story too. A major seat of power in this world is the Heroes Guild. This is the guild we're recruited into after Dad leaves his mortal shell. This place also acts as a hub for the player, blatantly ripping off mechanics from Elden Ring and Dark Souls. The Heroes Guild is led by Mace, who saved us from our demise in Oakville. The actual day-to-day tasks are carried out by the Guildmaster, however, who oversees our training and mentors us through life. He does so by mansplaining while invading our privacy.
And your guild seal will allow me to communicate with you at all times.
Cool.
What are you? Oh!
You've received a new quest card.
Again!
The Heroes Guild receives tasks from the public in the form of quest cards. This is also how quests are given to the player. What I did find jarring was that the Heroes Guild, a faction that produces heroes such as ourselves, were totally on board with doing outright evil shit. The title of hero in this world is earned through doing great deeds, regardless of the morality. The capital city is known as Bowerstone. This place is ruled by Lady Grey with an iron chest. She is hiding a great secret, and I'm not just talking about her badonkadonks. Law is kept by the guards, who are patrolling the cities, towns and wilderness settlements. It costs too much trouble and you'll have to pay a fine, unless you sponsor their break, in which case they'll let you do whatever you want.
Alright, hero.
Even at the bordello. Especially at the bordello. The main villain of the game is Jack of Blades. He is after the Sword of Aeons, a very powerful sword that can only be activated with the power of our bloodline. As such, Jack of Blades has it out for us, as well as our mother and sister, who are actually very much alive. Thrown into the mix is also a group of bandits. They fall under the leadership of Twinblade, who is named after the best weapon in the best Dark Souls game. Unbeknownst to the player character, these bandits actually have your sister for the first part of the game, and after that revelation, they serve no other purpose in the story other than being cannon fodder. Rather than being interwoven, all of these factions seem to operate mostly on individual levels. I felt like that was a missed chance. From a narrative standpoint, it could have been interesting to have all antagonistic forces work together, and then have an epic showdown at the bordello. Or something. Traveling through the world can be done on foot or by using the fast travel system. A limitation of the time is that rather than having a big open world to fully explore, the world is split into different submaps, and these zones are tiny. Every time you leave a zone to go to the next, you'll be met with a loading screen. Having an SSD alleviates some of this, but it really messes with the pacing of the game. And at its worst, it makes travel feel like a slog, rather than an exciting expedition. Fast travel is an option, but that can only be done by using Cullis gates. The fast travel system is designed in a way that you can only fast travel to the Cullis gates. An exception is that you can also teleport to the location you have used your fast travel last. Fast travel can be enabled from anywhere though. This prevents the player from abusing the fast travel system and making sure that they see more of the world, which is all well and good. But for me, it's also where the fast travel system fails to stick the landing, as there is no Cullis gate at the bordello, making it quite difficult to come there. The employees didn't make it any easier. As for the music, I only have one thing to say. Since Fable 1 operates on the basis that a player can be good or evil, the composers were tasked with writing theme music that inspired heroism while also instilling trepidation. In my opinion, they nailed it. Generally, there are two ways the player can interact with the game's NPCs, either via expressions or via combat. Expressions are actions or gestures that the player can do. They range from asking someone to follow you to making flirtatious movements towards men. You can also gift items to the people in the world.
It's not a very usual present, but thank you nonetheless.
One downside of this is that when you're playing with the controller, the hotkey for gifting will automatically override any other you might have. This might lead you to give away diamonds on accident. This is actually how my first hero met his husband.
We're good mates, aren't we?
Hell yeah, homie! Some expressions are based on your renown and your alignment. Renown is earned through completing quests and beating NPCs in combat, while your alignment is based on which quests you complete in what way, and which NPCs you send to an untimely grave. More on that system later. The combat system is quite good for 2004 standards, but after our serotonin receptors have been irrevocably fried by games like Dark Souls, it's showing its age. Combat is divided into 3 subcomponents: melee, ranged and magic, just like the best game ever made. Melee is divided into 3 strength skills, range contains 3 skill categories, and magic, called will in this universe, has 4 subcategories. What's cool about the leveling system is that leveling the main skills will influence the aesthetic and age of your character. Strength will make you more jacked, skill will make you taller, and willpower gives you dick veins. Haha! Because of the way this is designed, it's entirely possible to have your growth spurt at the age of 35. Damage can be done with all 3 combat styles, and the different disciplines have bonuses associated with them as well. Strength gives you more sustainability, skill makes you faster and more stealthy, and magic gives you more mana. Alongside the spells that do damage, Fable hosts quite a large category of utility spells. What's more is that they can be used in conjunction with each other, so what I like to do is slow down time while casting a spell that makes my bow shoot a barrage. I was able to double tap the final boss this way. The experience from quests can be spent to level up in skills. The cost of this increases exponentially as you level up more. One design choice that I really liked is the way combat experience is distributed. The longer you'll stay in combat without taking damage, the more XP you will earn. This is based on your combat multiplier, which gets higher the longer you're engaged in uninterrupted combat. You can get 4 types of experience. You have your traditional XP and XP that is dependent on each of the skills. Experience rewards is based on what you're using during combat. Doing magic damage will result in magic experience gained in addition to normal experience. When you're leveling up, the game will spend experience from the relevant skill tree before dipping in your normal experience. You will grow first in the skills you're using the most. Being able to switch styles without interrupting gameplay feels really fluid, and it's quite impressive that they made it work on a game that is this old. In my 35 hours of gameplay, I never died once. When you get some basic equipment and potions, combat is never really that threatening. You will also come across plenty of resurrection vials that will revive you from encounters that normally would have killed you. So even if you run out of rations, you'll probably never run out of resurrection vials. What's absolutely challenging about combat systems such as these is that you have to balance them very carefully. Every skill of combat should be rewarding, viable and fun, while also staying balanced throughout. Fable tried to do this, but it failed. In my opinion, ranged is the most viable option. One thing I hated about the melee combat was that as you get stronger, you push down enemies. While they're on the ground, they cannot be damaged. So while I was really looking forward to doing this with a big stick, what ended up happening is that I knocked people down and then it interrupted my entire combat flow. Alternatively, I could just do this. In the end, it becomes clear that the combat has a strong basis, but after a few hours of gameplay, it just doesn't stick the landing and it fails to stay interesting to engage with throughout. This is because there are clear winners and very clear losers when it comes to balancing the system. The player character is an empty vessel for the player. This is largely attributed to the fact that the hero of Oakville is a silent protagonist. In my opinion, silent protagonists only work if it fits the setting of a game, or we can gain insights into what the character thinks and feels. Like so. What's up, girl?
Summoning the what? What do you want?
Let me show y'all. Now he just looks like a stupid head. This is something I critiqued in my story explained video as well. So every time something even a little bit shocking happens, he'll be like this. Oh.
Your sister.
Oh.
Hero, contrary to popular belief, women actually shit too.
Oh. I won't be judging this too hardly though, as it was 2004 and narrative-driven RPGs on this scale were still in its infancy. To me, the leveling stayed interesting because your character also aesthetically changed over the course of the game, depending on your build. Each time you increase a level, you gain 0.7 years of age, up to a maximum age of 65. However, the player's age has no relevance on the gameplay or the world as a whole. This led to some awkward moments.
Oh, woe is me.
My son is poorly.
Help me, I am a teenager dying of dysentery. Help me, I'm still a teenager dying of dysentery. I do get what they were going for with the aging mechanic, but it just doesn't work out as well if the world doesn't age with you. For example, this is me meeting with the Guildmaster when I was 10 years old. And this is me with the Guildmaster when I am pushing 50. I am the only one who has aged. Rather than the passing of time being something immersive, it is implemented in a way that only takes me out of the experience, because it ends up being silly. Your alignment modifier also influences your looks. If you're good-natured, you will get white hair as you get older, alongside a halo. If you're evil, you go bald, grow horns, and are constantly surrounded by flies. It's basically a choice of being Gandalf or a Discord moderator. Two other mechanics the game has are scariness and attractiveness. They determine how scary or attractive you are. Tattoos, haircuts, and clothes all have an influence on this. This feature didn't really do anything special, except make my evil hero so scary that he couldn't use a store. On the other hand, my good hero was so attractive that he had a spouse in every town. Renown is how famous or infamous you are, and your alignment is how moral you behave. Renown is automatically earned from combat and completing quests, while alignment can be gained from how you interact with those quests and the NPCs in the world. Reaching certain levels in renown and alignment will unlock additional quests and gestures. The mastery of some spells is locked behind alignment as well, which is pretty cool. A gripe I have with how morality is handled in this game is that it's quite binary. Your character is either evil personified or the resurrection of Jesus Christ himself. This is represented as well in the way quests are presented to the player. Oftentimes, you will have the choice between building an orphanage for babies or see if you can throw those same babies further than your rival Whisper. Because of this dichotomy in morality, I felt like we missed out on more interesting narratives and playstyles. I would have liked to play as a reluctant hero that likes to take shortcuts in life, but would fight for the preservation of the world if needed. Or a hero that has a dark moment and snaps as soon as he learns that his favorite bordello isn't in service anymore. After a while, words of your deeds will spread, and if you gain enough renown, you won't be able to go in public without people cheering you on or spitting on you. This got annoying real quick.
There you are.
One thing that was a bit hard to come to terms with was that accidental kills tend to happen, especially once you get more powerful. For my playstyle, I loosened quite a bit of arrows, and some of these arrows may or may not have found an innocent bystander every now and then.
What are you doing? I'm your mother.
Oh. Morality does not end up mattering much in this story either.
Was that Thunder song? That's not exactly what I had in mind when I sent you to him.
It would have been interesting to have branching gameplay choices and endings, but this is unfortunately not really the case. So while I understand the idea behind it, it ends up not being used to its full potential. Now, parallel to real life, you can just raise your alignment by donating money to the good church or donating souls to the evil church.
New followers. Good.
One of the more interesting aspects of Fable was the side content. Everyone knows that an RPG is incomplete without a fishing minigame, and Fable delivers. We can also gamble. Each town has a tavern where you can play minigames for gold. And while they are interesting for a game or two, it does not pay off to put too much time in it. This is because on chicken difficulty, money did not really matter once you have a steady supply of potions and some starting equipment. One thing that was also pretty fun was being able to rent out houses. And this is one of the only instances where I was allowed to roleplay as a lawful evil landlord with questionable morals. Engaging in evil deeds, such as raising rent based on existing furnishing. The side quests are all pretty good, and they were elevated by the boasting system. Here, you can do the same quest under different, more challenging circumstances for greater rewards. To me, systems like these are more interesting to engage with than something like heroic difficulty. What's more is that with this, they predicted Dark Souls challenge runs before those flooded the internet. I really enjoyed collecting the legendary weapons throughout the game. These are weapons that are only available under special circumstances. My absolute favorites were the Big Bunkus and the medieval M16. One downside was that the early game did not really allow for farming these, but as soon as you were able to, most of them were already obtainable. So you're either in a game state where no legendary weapons are available, or most of them are. This prevents you from being able to build up to different weapons, and spending equal amounts of time with each weapon. Moreover, once all quests are done, there isn't really much to do anymore that requires combat, and this minimizes the time spent with legendary weapons. My absolute favorite side content were the demon doors. These doors held secrets and legendary equipment, but only opened if you answered a riddle or a puzzle.
Where is the gallant knight I await?
Guys, I figured it out. He wants me to talk to him while wearing plate armor.
Where is the gallant knight I await?
Godverdomme. They were also sassy as hell.
Only by defeating another hero in combat will I open for you. Got that? I mean, how simple are you?
One of the biggest upsides of this game can be found in the way it tackles humor. I don't want to give away too much, because if you repeat a joke, it's a lot less funny, which is why my channel flatlined in the past few months. They strike an alright balance between humor and drama, though I did find that because of the age of the game, dramatic moments were not hitting as hard as they maybe should have.
Your sister. I know. I had to tie her up.
Despite this, the experience is pretty solid, and the narrative, while not pushing any boundaries by modern standards, manages to stay entertaining throughout. So how does it hold up today? You might be surprised to learn that you can realistically beat this game within a day of playing. I had about 9 hours played when I first finished the main quest. 100%ing the game and seeing everything will likely take you somewhere between 30 or 40 hours. Now, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I think it's entirely okay to have an RPG take only a handful of hours. For example, I wish I could finish my second playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3, an undertaking that will likely set you back 100 hours, but I just can't find the time to get there while also juggling life's responsibilities. With Fable, I was able to see almost everything and do multiple playthroughs. To add to that, I'd rather have a game be too short while wanting more and being motivated for a secondary playthrough. Sometimes games are so long they'll make you wonder when it will be over. This was not a problem I had with Fable. My final verdict is that it was pretty good. I enjoyed my second playthrough more than the first one because I was mentally prepared for the things that I disliked. It felt pretty refreshing to me to have an RPG that you can realistically finish in one day of gameplay. There is really something classic about this game, and I will always hold a special place in my heart for the era of gaming in which it was released. If you can get past the unusual vibe, clunky gameplay and somewhat outdated design, you have a pretty solid RPG that is worthy of your time. And they also have a bordello. Training starts immediately, and the Guildmaster has prepared a very special curriculum.
I want you to hit as hard as you can. Just keep going till I tell you to stop. I think you've earned yourself some pocket money for that. You can put that old away.